You don't realize until the end that there's some really heavy shit.
Yeah, it's heavy. I teared up a little bit at the end.
Pack your bags. So what do they look like? You'll see soon enough.
It's their language.
So welcome, Tig. You just got done watching Arrival, 2016 science fiction film directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'm probably pronouncing his name incorrectly. Who also a couple of years later went on to direct Blade Runner 2049, stars Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner. And though this movie was kind of critically acclaimed, I don't know that it's really bled its way into pop culture or not. So for people who haven't seen it, Arrival is a first contact movie. Aliens or alien craft arrive on Earth in various places around Earth, and Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner are brought in to learn how to communicate with the aliens, because that's sort of the first hurdle, is figuring out how to communicate with one another, and then it sort of goes from there. One warning for people who haven't seen the movie: we're going to be discussing spoilers in this. If you don't mind spoilers, then watch. Otherwise, if you want to go into it fresh, hit pause, go watch the movie, and come back. So, Tig, you've experienced Arrival.
I thought it was amazing. You told me that you and your son saw it in the theater and then sat around, for an hour or two, sitting around thinking about it afterward. And I found myself doing the same thing.
When you first begin watching it, you know clearly it's going to be a movie that's taking a more intellectual approach on first contact, right? And the movie initially appears as if it's about, and it is largely, it's about communication and miscommunication and connecting.
Priority one. What do they want? Where are they from?
And beyond that, how did they get here? Are they capable of fast and light travel?
How about we just talk to them before we start throwing math problems at them?
This is why you're both here.
You don't realize until the end that there's some really heavy shit.
Yeah, it's heavy. I teared up a little bit at the end. It was like a rough ride in a way.
I did as well, including on subsequent viewings, and even right now when I think about the choice that she has to make, that she makes,
right?
It really chokes me up because,
yeah, I think
oh my God.
It's almost hard to explain, yeah. But that the timeline is really more like you're outside of it, saying this is like it's all here. And you could just move around in spots.
Amy Adams' character is a sort of a translator, a linguist. She gets brought in to learn how to communicate with these alien creatures. And the alien creatures have this written language. It's kind of circular. The aliens exist in a way that they don't perceive time in a linear fashion the way we do. They kind of perceive time all at the same time. What happens when you learn this language, you begin to perceive time in that way as well. When the movie opens, we see that Amy Adams has just lost her daughter to a very rare cancer. Yeah, very, very rare disease. First 5 minutes of the movie are immediately like, oh man, this is difficult.
I literally said out loud, like, Eric, why did you make me watch this movie? I was like, come on. But then at the end, I was like, oh, I'm so glad he made me watch it.
As the movie's progressing, she is having these flashbacks to moments with her daughter. Except, as we learn at the end, they're not actually flashbacks, they're flash forwards. She's seeing glimpses of her own future. The whole time, Amy Adams knows that the daughter that she's about to have is destined to die as a child. And she makes the choice to go ahead and have a family anyway, because I'm starting to get choked up here. She has to decide between like the good moments and that terrible end.
And it's tough because is it selfish on her part? Why would you get rid of all those moments? But then on the other hand, is it selfish on her part to have the child and have the child go through all that emotional turmoil just so you can have those moments?
You want to make a baby?
If the timeline changed, if she decided like, well, I'm not going to have the child, but then do you lose the memories, or is the timeline unfortunately not able to be broken?
Thought about those questions continuously every time I watch this. those questions like bounce around in my head. And I don't think, and I think this is one of the reasons why this movie's so remarkable and why, to me, I really feel like it's an important picture in the genre. I don't think there is a right answer.
Right.
Oh, well, obviously she should have done this or she should have done that. I don't know. I think there's a lot of truth to what you say. And like, you can make the case that she made a very selfish decision. Not only does her daughter end up going through the trauma that her daughter goes through, but so does Jeremy Renner's character. I love how they play it out throughout the movie when she's having these visions of her daughter feel like flashbacks, and they're played just like flashbacks normally would be in a movie. But when you actually go back and you watch it a second time, they're very clearly not flashbacks.
Right.
It's actually really apparent when you watch it the second time that they aren't flashbacks, because she's really confused by them.
I guess because we're conditioned from watching movies, we're conditioned by flashbacks. They use that against you in this movie. And like you said, until you watch it a second time and go, oh my God, like it's nothing at all what you think it is.
Yeah, they do a really great job of using that conditioning that we've had. Like, you know, we think we understand cinematic language, and they use that in a way to lead us down the wrong path. But then when you watch it the second time, it's actually really clear, because by her reactions, she's pained and she's confused, and it's apparent like she doesn't understand what's going on. What is this that I'm seeing? What are these voices that I'm hearing?
Yeah, you almost think something's wrong.
I just realized why my husband left me.
I think this still has a lot of potency even once you know what it is that's happening.
I think you have to watch it more than one time to even understand it all. I don't think it sinks in completely the first time.
Throughout the picture, it's also dealing with all these other things as well. The idea of communication and language and miscommunication. How we can misinterpret words and phrases and see them in different ways.
What does it say?
Offer weapon.
Use tool or use weapon. You know, the different interpreters all around the world are seeing this in different ways.
We don't know if they understand the difference between a weapon and a tool.
So how do we clarify their intentions beyond those two words?
The whole movie is about communication. So there's 12 different countries, each doing their own thing, and some of the countries are communicating with each other and then some aren't, and then that creates a panic when some of them start to cut others off, and suddenly there's no communication, which makes it dangerous.
We need to be talking to each other.
You want to talk to them? Find out what this means.
These countries cutting one another off almost leads to a global crisis.
Right. With the aliens, they're not there out of kindness. They're not doing this because they want the world to come together for humanity, like to bring us all together and finally learn to communicate. They literally are like, 3,000 years from now, you guys have to help us. So we need to come and make sure you get your shit together so you can help us out 3,000 years from now.
What a great conceit that is.
Yeah.
I really like that. One, of course, that speaks to the idea that they perceive time differently than we do, which takes a little bit to wrap your head around. And yeah, like you said, you know, it's not this benevolent thing that they're doing. Their whole purpose in teaching us their language, which then unhooks our head from linear time, is because they know that we need to help them out at some point in the future. And it's going to require communicating with us and helping us understand their language. And I love when science fiction movies actually get into process. There's a lot of procedural stuff in this movie when they're actually trying to break down the written language of the aliens and how it works. And they actually kind of get into the process of how they would go about doing this. And I love that. It feels like a mental puzzle. It's not magic. There's not space magic happening here. Even the idea of perceiving time differently, it kind of feels magical because we're not, as humans, quite grasp that or understand that. But the idea is kind of there. It's rooted in theoretical science.
They did such a great job too at how simple the movie is. The movie is just all, 3 locations, the entire movie?
Yeah, for the most part, like you're either in the tents at the campsite, in the ship, in the chamber with them.
And early on, you're at the house.
For the most part, that's it. That's That's the whole movie.
From the surface, it would be so boring. They didn't do a good service. The marketing with the poster and even the name of it, they just did not do a good job. I would have never watched it just because they did a poor job selling it.
The trailers and the marketing weren't super great. The title is really just nondescript. The poster is the most generic looking thing you could imagine.
It's one of those posters working at the theater that it's a poster no one would want.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want it. And I'm a huge fan of this movie. Even when you talk about the surface level stuff, I mean, I feel like it's just beautifully shot. Like, it's gorgeous. It's a visually beautiful movie.
The shot with the helicopter ride in is amazing.
Oh my God,
it goes so long. Like, it goes longer than you would think. They just held on for the turn all the way around. That's such an awesome shot.
Fog sweeping down off the mountains. And then when finally the ship pans into view, very minimalist, world music inspired score, which I think was just haunting and beautiful and perfect for the tone of this movie. Even the brief bits of quote unquote action that there are a couple of gunshots in the movie and there's an explosion. The gunshots actually take place off camera before I realize that, the other heavier things that are going on. I'm kind of along for the ride with Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, like, oh, we got to crack the code. Like, what is this? And what is this language, what they're doing and all this stuff. And I was really all about that.
Yeah, that's the best part about it. Them trying to figure out what all those little symbols mean on the circles and
Is it everywhere? So what is this?
figuring out that they're trying to teach us their language. They're not really concerned with our language.
There's kind of a very human arrogance in the beginning. We're going to teach them about how we, about our language and
Right.
how to talk to us. And now it turns out all along, it was kind of really the reverse. It was about them teaching us their language, not vice versa.
I know they always have to do the military is always paranoid because they have to be. That whole thing going on, they handled that really good.
She hasn't yet wrapped her head around the way she's unhooked in time, that even in the flash forward, when she meets the general at this big meeting a few months after, at the meeting, she doesn't quite know what it is that happened yet. So she's asking him, what did I say to you? At this point, her mind is like sort of in multiple places at once.
So that happened. But when she meets him, he is showing his number like, oh yeah, you called me personally. Like, that part's hard to figure out because you don't know if it happened that way because she needed it at the moment or if it just so happened to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? That part's a little bit confusing.
Because it's got that it gets into that whole time loopy, is this or is this not a paradox kind of thing, right? Because yeah, she gets the number in the future. So when she calls him in the present in the movie, she only knows the number because he showed it to her in the future.
And has the information about the wife.
Right, same thing. Yeah, that's when he expresses to her his wife's final words. And he only gives her the number, shows her the number in the future because he knows that she needed it in the past.
But how does he know that?
General, I don't know your private number.
Now you know.
I think if he also knows how to read the language at that point, then it makes sense that he would give her the information.
Yeah, it's so much to wrap your head around, but in a really great way. Like I did just delight in kind of trying to piece it together. And I think when you dive into it, it hangs together. It works.
They did a very good job at keeping it tightly knit. Like, I can't think of anything that seems to be a loophole.
Anytime that you're dealing with, this isn't quite time travel, but it's close to time travel. And time travel is always a really kind of messy thing because you grab one string and you pull on that thread, and a lot of times, like, the story can just sort of all fall apart. And I don't think that really happens here.
This is a better way of doing the time travel idea, a more logical way of dealing with it.
The movie is based on a short story called Story of Your Life by Ted Chiang. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. But basically, every time he writes something, it wins like 8 billion awards. The guy's got 4 Nebula Awards, 4 Hugo Awards, 4 Locus Awards. I think he has maybe a dozen to 15 short stories out there, and that's basically it. That's like his whole output. But when he writes something, it's always really celebrated.
For a long time prior to this, I held Contact, even though it wasn't like the greatest movie. I just liked the idea of it. That's like child's play.
I don't disagree with you at all. And like you, I'm a big fan of Contact. I really love that movie. This deals with some similar ideas and just takes them to another level. Bears repeating that there's just so much going on here. There's so many layers, so many thematic layers, and so many ideas to unravel and deal with, both from personal story and the difficult decisions she has to make, to the way it deals with language and communication, to the way it deals with concepts of time and our perception of time, like the smaller issues of global politics and how world governments would deal with a first contact situation. Most of the time in first contact movies, that's the main focus.
Yeah, I was very glad they did that. They only had to give you, if she's walking down the hall or whatever, you get tidbits of it. So you don't have to like dwell on it. You just know, okay, there's a lot of people going a little bit nuts outside, but we're focusing on trying to figure this thing out. And it makes you feel like you're part of the team that's trying to figure it out.
100%. That is a really like about this. You're going through the process with them.
We have orders to do the same.
Wait, these are our allies.
Colonel, you can't shut us down. Put us on radio silence.
Do it.
We received a message from the Damn it!
I'm really glad you enjoyed this. I thought that you might. I mean, I could easily sit here and talk with you about it for another hour.
It was great. I'm going to watch it again, and I'll probably end up watching it again after that, just because it's just so much to take. It's so simple, but so much to take in at the same time. I think if anybody's watching this and they decide, I mean, if you're watching this, you probably already saw it, but if you didn't, there's nothing spoiled. It's not really going to spoil anything. Even us discussing how she figures out how time works is not going to really spoil anything.
Agree 100%. You could have that revelation spoiled and still find so much to take away from this movie.
I wish they made a good poster. Because it would be hanging in the room right now if they made I'm gonna have to buy somebody's, how there's like a fan art kind of posters that people make.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to find one of those just so I can hang it up.
Well, if you find a good one, let me know.
Yeah, well,
I want one too. If you guys have seen Arrival, please discuss it in the comments below. We both want to know how this impacted you and what your thoughts are on the movie and the revelation and all the rest of that stuff.
We both would love to hear what everyone's opinions on it, because I went straight to Reddit, to hear what other people had to say about it immediately. So it'd be great to hear some comments. It's my time! The movie I'm going to give you is actually old. It is an action comedy from 1965. Faster Pussycat Kill Kill.
For your own safety, see Faster Pussycat. Kill! Superwoman, belted, buckled, and booted.
You're wasting yourself on this kid and hanging yourself for nothing. For nothing? It's got nothing to do with the money. She is the money. Everybody's got to go.
You name it, we've got it. Faster Pussycat, kill.
Well, I will check this out in the day or so ahead and find you again in this space.
That's right! Hat or no hat. And thanks for hanging out at the movie club.